All right, a video for Icha. Tori, this is Nick. Thanks for requesting this video on the Massie trials or the Massie affair that took place in the territory of Hawaii back in the early 1930s, 1931, 1932. Fascinating case. I've learned a lot doing it, and I'll put links in the description box for everybody who's watching to, look up the sources and the information. There's excerpts from transcripts online, photographs of the time. I wish I could have found some of the archives from uh, the local newspapers in Honolulu, but I didn't have I don't know, I didn't have a chance to check it out. But those would be fascinating. Basically, this whole case, classism and racism collide to create gross injustices, really infuriating injustices. Fascinating case. Just a word first on what you can see when you see this is one of the things racism does. Of course, it invalidates people. There are different ways to invalidate people. One, you can treat them like children and sort of have a benign sort of, oh, well, these people, they're not grown up. They don't really understand. They're like, have a childlike innocence. And they invalidate somebody in this way. But if they really want to do violence to you, they will start to refer to you as an animal. They will slide you down the evolutionary scale and use words, as they did in this case, as the press did in this case, and the admiral in the area did in this case. They'll call you a brute, an animal, semi-animal. They'll call you a mongrel. They'll start to identify you with the animal kingdom. Why? Because this culture considers itself superior to animals and enslaves them and eats them and does whatever it wants with animals. So then they can justify any crime against you. They don't have to give you any human rights. So they will start to when you start to see words from the animal kingdom used. That's time to take alert. And this was done quite often in this case by the press. Who were also extolling the virtues of lynch law, the efficiency of lynch law, and there were lynchings going on in the mainland, especially in the South, in the early 1930s. Had been for quite some time. This was not an unknown thing. It was going on the mainland. So also the way they portray Thalia Macy, whose allegations were false, as the flower of womanhood, innocent, someone to be protected, is a way that also women are invalidated actually. But that's a whole sexist feminist critique that I won't go into. But the press portrayed her as the delicate thing that must be protected, and these brute natives, that there's just bands of natives lying in wait for our honored white women. That must be protected. Ridiculous, actually. So anyway, she was married at 16 to a naval officer. She was apparently very unhappy in the wedding, considered herself superior, was raised very pampered. Her mother raised her very pampered and very privileged. She came from some branch of the Roosevelt family, and also, I think, Alexander Graham Bell's family was in there. So anyway, it's a moneyed, privileged, upper crust society um, that the mother came from, Fortescue. She raised her daughter this way, and her daughter then at the age of 16 marries a naval officer, is unhappy with that, considers herself superior to the other naval wives, has a lot of conflict, there's a lot of drinking, blah, blah, blah. One night, she leaves the nightclub early. About 1 in the morning, a passing by car picks her up, and she claims to have been assaulted by four Hawaiian men. That story later changes after talking to the police, who have information from a altercation that occurred, a traffic motor vehicle near collision altercation that occurred somewhere across the island, too distant to actually get there. She picks up information, she changes her entire story, and she then alleges that she was not only assaulted, but raped by 5 men. Um, who at first she said she couldn't identify anybody. Then they bring in these guys. Says, I don't know. Then she changes her whole story and she says, yeah, these are the guys who raped me. So they get put on trial for rape. It was a hung jury, probably because her clothes were intact, huh? And because they could not have physically been there. So anyway, the hung jury causes all kinds of tumult. The press is pushing for a lynch law, an execution, blah, 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 summary execution. The mother shows up, Grace Fortescue. She and the husband and two sailors below him in rank kidnap one of the five originally accused men, falsely accused men, end up shooting him. Then they claim, well, Clarence Darrow comes out, to my surprise, and defends them, and they claim that the guy was temporarily insane. The press portrays this as an honor killing. You see, not murder, which is what it was brutal murder, but as an honor killing, you know. Anyway, there's a lot of fabricated things the defense use. Anyway, they actually do get, to their great surprise, because remember, they consider themselves privileged, and you look at the photographs and you can see how comfortable they are and how happy they are, and they don't seem to really be concerned at all, because they're sure that the law is going to operate in their favor with their wealth and their skin color. Anyway, they get convicted. 4 to 10 years of hard labor. There's a recommendation for some sort of leniency. So what happens? The governor of the territory steps in and he commutes their sentence to 1 hour served either in his office or in the office of the sheriff. So they got away with a 1 hour sentence under rather plush circumstances, and they're whisked away on a boat the next day. A couple years later, the Macy's, Thalia and Tommy, get divorced. She eventually commits suicide, overdose of barbiturates in any event, in the 1960s. But yeah, they got away with murder. It's really infuriating. I was surprised that Clarence Darrow took the case. I guess he'd lost all his money in the stock market crash. His biographer, portrays him as sort of trying to cool racial tensions and keep race out of the issue, etc. But in any event, it's clear from a later confession by one of the sailors, a guy named Deacon Jones, that he actually murdered Joe Kawa Hawaii, and says that it was part of Darrow's defense strategy to claim that it was Tommy, the husband, who got shot, and then to claim temporary insanity because, they alleged that Joe Hawaii finally said, "Yeah, we did it," and confessed to the original alleged crime of assault and rape. And then Darrow claimed temporary insanity. But Deacon also confessed that that never happened. The guy never did confess. Joe Kawawai never did confess, and it was Deacon who shot him, not Tommy Massie. Fascinating case. I'll put links in the description box. As I say, you really see racism and classism coming together. This depiction of people as brutes, as animals. Racism almost always does this. When the Irish came to the United States, their presence was resented, and the political cartoons at that time showed them with simian, ape-like features. So it is one of the, what would you call it, tactic of racism to portray people as less than human, generally in the in animal kingdom, never as a plant, I guess. So those are things to be aware of when people start to use language from the animal kingdom and apply it. There's usually I believe, usually some intent towards violence concern at play. And I say there's other ways to invalidate people, these more benign ways to treat people as children, or to treat people as insane, or what have you, or just not smart enough. But when they want to do violence to you, they'll start to call you an animal. Fascinating case. Thanks a lot. The links are great. The photographs from that time are just amazing. I do. There are extracts of the transcripts, some of the excerpts from the transcripts. Apparently, it was a very dramatic trial. The prosecution put Thalia on the spot, and she tore up a piece of the evidence, tore it to bits, and it should have been a point for the prosecution. But instead, people applauded her. You can see the racism at operation throughout this whole thing. It was cold-blooded, planned murder. Murder of forethought, and they should have all been sentenced immediately to first-degree murder. They eventually got sentenced to manslaughter, and it was commuted, but it should have been first-degree planned murder. It was cold-blooded, and it was a travesty of justice that they were allowed to go free on a nice boat the next day, accompanied by Clarence Darrow. All right, Icha, as I say, thank you very much. It was a fascinating topic. Take care.